Hi, I'm Judith Patterson. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Texas, and today I'm going to show you how to create a card from the catalog. Well, the celebration brochure anyway. So we're going to be looking at page 12 of the celebration brochure. This is the one for August to September 2021. And this is the card that we're going to be creating, is this one right here. It uses this Textures and Frames stamp set along with the Whimsical Trees stamp set and the Christmas Trees dies. And we're also going to use the Messages die just to cut out the sentiment. So let's get straight to stamping. Wait, before we get straight to stamping, let me tell you about Celebration. If you don't already know, everything in this Celebration brochure is free with a qualifying purchase. And depending on what country you're in, that qualifying purchase is a little bit different. For the US, it is $50 or $100 depending on what you want out of here. There's 2 items in this brochure that are free with a $100 purchase. The rest of them's free with $50 purchase, and you can increase your purchase amount and increase how many free sets you get, which is really fun. Okay, and of course, if you would like to order something and you're in the US, I would love to help you with that. You can comment here. You can send me a comment through my blog. It's www.judithpatterson.net. All right, now let's get to stamping. Okay, so these are the 2 stamp sets that I mentioned. From this Textures and Frames set, we're only using this stamp here. And from the Whimsical Trees, we're going to be using Let Your Heart Be Light. Also, this adorable little Christmas tree. So I've cut a piece of basic white cardstock to 3.5 inches by 4 3/4 inches. So we're going to start with it. Okay. So beginning with Real Red, I suggest having something handy to clean your stamp between ink colors. I'm grabbing a non-alcoholic baby wipe and my chamois. Okay. I rinsed this in the sink earlier, so. Okay, so beginning at the top towards the center, stamp your first color. Close that ink and just stamp it off onto my baby wipe there. And then I'm going to use my, it's still wet from when I washed it in the sink a while ago. I should have dried it better, huh? I didn't want to get lint or anything on it, so let's see. There we go. That should be good. Let me dry the block as well. Okay, now we're sticky again. Okay, so the next color is Petal Pink. Make sure it's facing the same way. Just line it up underneath that first stamp, and you want to get pretty close, but you don't want to overlap. Of course, if you do, it's not the end of the world. I have no idea how I just managed to get Petal Pink on my cardstock like that. So I could flip it over, but I don't think I will. I think I'm gonna try something in a little bit. Got a little creative covering it up. So the next color is Bumblebee. If you've watched some of my other videos, you might already know I'm a very messy stamper, as you can see with my boo-boo right there. So I always close my ink pads. It's not required by any means, but I always keep them closed when I'm not using them, because I have been known to put my fingers in them, put my card in them that I'm making. That's never fun. So I just always keep them closed up when I'm not really using them. Because I am accident prone. Okay, so this is shaded spruce. I love this green. Makes me think of a forest, which is probably why they call it shaded spruce. And for the last color, we're using Pool Party. And this one, I didn't get mine quite close enough, so it is going off the page. I'm not worried about that at all. If you are, just squish them a little closer together. This is no stress stamping. We're not going to stress over our stamping. We're just going to go with it and have a good time. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do, I have a Post-it note. This is one of those long Post-its, and I cut it to, I don't even know what I cut it to. It's about 1.5 inches, and I'm just going to place it to where it covers up most of what I just stamped. And I'm going to grab a piece of washi tape to hold down this other end. Then I'm going to grab a water painter, which I forgot I moved and put in my drawer. So this is a pretty narrow water painter. And what I'm going to do is I have got all this ink on the inside of my lid. So I'm going to pick it up with my water painter. I'm going to drip some water down there. I'm going to pick it up with my water painter. Get it pretty wet, but I want it to be pretty dark as well. And then I'm going to flick it. Oh, I need it wetter. I'm going to flick it on my card. And I'm going to keep picking up ink wherever I can find it. If I need to, I'm just going to go ahead and, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just squeeze some ink into the lid. There we go. So now I'll pick that up, make sure my brush is wet, and now I'm going to splatter that on my card. And some people do this with a marker, a Stampin' Wrap marker. I've never been able to get that to work really well, but I really like using the water painter for this. Add a little bit more water, a little bit more ink. And then I'm going to take my water painter, and I covered up that pink splotch. I'm going to make it just a little darker. I don't know why I'm adding some dark places, but I wanted to. Okay, so I'm just going to wipe my brush off now. I'm squeezing the water into it. You can also run it under a faucet to get that, get all the ink out of the brush tip. I'll do that too in a minute because I don't have very much water in my brush. But that's most of it. Okay, so now I'm going to get that little adorable Christmas tree and a scrap piece of vellum cardstock. So I'm gonna, this just helps to get the static off the cardstock. I'm gonna use my Versamark ink. I'm stamping the Christmas tree. And then I have gold embossing powder. So I'm going to pour this on top of my tree. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and close this up and set it aside. I'm going to grab my heat tool. Be careful not to burn your fingers. You don't want to get too close. See the shine now that it's set. Okay, it is just not going to show it very sharply. Alright, so now what I'm going to do, I already have 2 other Christmas trees that I've stamped and heat embossed. And I also stamped Let Your Heart Be Light with the Versamark, and I used white embossing powder on this one and heat set it. Now I'm going to get out my Stampin' Cut and emboss machine. Clear off my desk space here. And I am using the big machine because I'm going to be using the Messages die, and it's kind of large. So I'm going to start with the Let Your Heart Be Light and the Messages die. And I'm using this one here. I'm gonna put it center, well, not center. I want my sentiment centered up and down, but I want it close to the left as I cut it out. I'm gonna use a couple pieces of washi tape to hold that in place. I'm going to add my other plate. I'm just going to go ahead and run that through. Okay, so this edge I'm going to end up trimming even, oh, you can't see that. I'm going to trim this edge off even more with scissors in a minute. Alright, so I'm going to grab my base plates back and get my little Christmas tree die from Whimsical Trees. Not Whimsical Trees, from the Christmas Trees dies. And center that over my tree, and I don't want it moving. So I'm adding washi to that as well. So that is all that we needed the Stamp Cut and Emboss machine for. So I'm going to fold it up and move it out of the way. That is not all we needed it for. Oopsie. So I have a piece of gold cardstock. It's just a small scrap. And I'm going to grab this die from the Christmas Trees dies. I'm putting it right here. I'm not taping it down because if it moves a little, it's not the end of the world. I'm going to run that through. Okay, now I'm finished with the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. And get those little stars. Now I'm folding it up, moving it out of the way for good this time. I'm going to start assembling my card. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I have my silicone mat, and I have a piece of sponge. I'm holding it together with just a binder clip. And I'm going to use my liquid glue. I'm just going to pop some in the corner here. And I'm going to brush it on the back of this vellum. I'm just going to place this here. I'm going to do another one. Need a little bit more glue. I never get enough glue when I'm doing it like this. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and place this one down here in the center on the bottom. Add a little bit more glue. I'm going to grab the final Christmas tree. And add it right here. Okay, so then I want to add the stars. So for the stars, yeah, just put that in glue. There we go. Gonna add just a dot of liquid glue at the top of the tree. And place the star on top of it. And hopefully it'll stay there. Here. Star there. And a dot here. Make sure you can see that. And a star here. Okay, so now I'm going to get my paper snips. So I want this to go right about here. I'm just going to snip off the edge. Okay, so now I'm going to grab my mini Stampin' Dimensionals. Ooh, I'm going to get my mini black Stampin' Dimensionals since I'm using black cardstock. There we go. There it goes. I have a little bit of glue on my fingers, so everything's sticking to me. I'm going to move this up a smidge. I'd rather it cover up the bottom of the Christmas tree than the top of the other Christmas tree. No, that's too much. There we go. Let's get that out of the way. Make sure it's straight. And we're golden. Okay, so this is the card base. It's 8.5 inches by 5.5 inches, scored at 4.25 inches. Using my bone folder to give it a good crease. And then I'm going to get Stampin' Dimensionals. Okay, and look, I'm at the end of this sheet, but I can still use it. So what I'm going to do is grab just an old pair of scissors. I don't like using my snips for this. And I'm just going to cut along here. And then these are ready to be used. So I use every bit of the Stampin' Dimensionals. Don't throw any of that away, because it can all be used. Then this just gets centered on the card base. And there you have it. Perfect little Christmas card using whimsical trees and textures and frames. Then the textures and frames, like I said, is from the Celebration brochure. So it is free with a qualifying purchase. And I would absolutely love it if you are in the US, don't have a demonstrator, and choose me. I would love to help you out and with any of your stamping needs. So I hope you enjoyed this card. I hope you're having a great day. Happy stamping. Bye-bye.